on our YouTube channel. So there's a Adobe Mug YouTube channel, and we will share the link to everyone. So, once the event finish, you'll get the link as well that you can come back to, take a look at and watch. Now, I know some of you are new in Marketo or just started. Sign up to Bevy. That's where you can get connected and obviously receive all the notifications and reminders about the new events. Go to mugs.marketo.com, find your chapter, and then just create an account using the email associated with your Adobe account, and you get all those notifications and event. All right, we're moving to the next one. There's a couple of things that I need to mention. There's a Marketo Engage Skill Exchange on August 8th. It is at 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is around like 2 a.m. Australia time, but maybe it's recorded. It is recorded, so it's recorded, which means that you can actually just, register for it, watch the recording, which is going to be helpful for people that want to learn or want to grow with their Marketo skill set. Now, the next one is a new learning path available for those who want to implement a new Marketo Engage instance. So, those that want to learn how to, become a Marketo admin, go and, join up this learning path. See how that goes. Now, the next part is about Mug. We always look for a speaker. We're always looking for a topic as well. So if you got something, let us know. We definitely want that. If you have a venue as well, or you want to sponsor for food and beverages, come and talk to one of your Mug leaders. And the next slide is where all of the leaders. So I'm the Sydney one, and we have Sydney, we have Brisbane, Melbourne, Auckland, Wellington. Quite a lot here. So the next part is our agenda. Yay! Went through all the housekeeping by there. And now the next one is going to be Jess and Amy going to the redesign email designer and Marketo Engage roadmap. Just making sure as well that there will be 5 minutes QA after each session. And then for the online people, the one that joined virtually, please feel free to put it in the chat. We have moderators that going to pretty much answer your question and reply to you. After that, we have Anna and Courtney from New Zealand. They're going to share the all-important briefing process. This is really important because this is pretty much going to set you up for the success of your campaign. Then we have Cecilia and Jay, our two beautiful Melbourne leaders. They're going to share their tips on building the program and automation in Marketo. After that, we're going to have a 10 minutes break just to make sure people can go away for a bit, have a little walk, go to the toilet, get some water, or some bites wherever you are. And then we'll go back in at 3:45, and we're going to get Jasmine and Brittany sharing their intro to QA and marketing automations, making sure that you minimize your risks on your program before they go live. That's important. And then we have Holly here from our Sydney leaders to go through the Marketo reporting. This is going to be an interesting one. She's going to walk through how to do reporting from the ground up, all the key data. So, better listen to it. This is going to be a good one.
Thank you. So I'm Anna McLaughlin. I head up marketing automation at Fisher Funds. And this is Courtney.
I'm Courtney Henderson, and I'm one of the marketing automation specialists at AUT.
Next slide. So we're going to talk to you about briefs. We have lots of fun internal conversations about briefs. I love a good brief, but what I love about a brief is that you may not necessarily see immediately how beneficial it can be, but it does longer term make our jobs easier, makes them more efficient and generally, I think, more enjoyable. And particularly if you can document something well up front, I always say I can thank my past self when I go back and look at it further down the track. And they're not easy, they're hard. Courtney and I have only really just met and chatted about briefs, and we both have quite different approaches to how we brief things or how people brief us and how we write briefs. So we thought it was actually quite a good use case to talk about. Next slide. So what is a brief? In its really simplest form, it's actually a piece of communication. So that's how we think about it, how we communicate with all the parties. And the other thing I think about it as is it's actually a conversation as well. So a communication and a conversation. And often it's the beginning of the actual work, but it also plays a really important part as the project continues and right at the end of the project, just when you're about to launch. Next slide. So a good brief has what we think 4 basic ingredients. So if you're going to take something away today back to your teams at work and you want to put a good brief in place, we think we've nailed it with these very 4 basic ingredients. So next slide.
I'm going to talk to you about why you should always have it in writing. You need to be keeping a record of everything you do because it's always that thing where somebody gets sick, anyone can pick up a brief and should know exactly where everything is and know what to do to move forward. So it's a nice, predictable breadcrumb, so to speak, of the whole process of your campaign. It has all the important details in there and, you know, it's just ready to go. Sorry, you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, next slide. So point 2 is it's focused and defines the business problem. So this is all about who are we solving it for? What do we actually want to tell them? And I guess for me, it's called a brief for a reason. So it needs to be really brief and to the point as well. And you don't have to include absolutely everything necessarily in that brief. And it really does depend. Courtney's going to talk to you about an example at the end where the details are really important. At Fisher Funds, we do more of a creative brief where the details are obviously important, but probably not necessarily to the same extent as what Courtney's going to talk about. And some of the best briefs I always think are quite often defined by what's been taken out. Like a good brief can originally be really long, but then once you've actually removed some of the content from it, it can be often the best part of the brief is the fact that you've condensed it right down and you really understand the business problem. And then point 3.
So this is your objective. You should definitely have it clearly defined. It should be short and simple. And this is really important while you're working through the brief and problems arise or you're getting questions or challenges. You can always go back and am I hitting the objective of this brief? And it's that thing you can always kind of like go back to when you're coming up against something.
And next slide. Then our last point is insightful. Now, I have an insights background and I lobbied to have an analyst in our marketing team, which has been invaluable in the last year or so, but it doesn't have to be a formal piece of analysis. A piece of insights might be something you hear from the front line. It might be you getting up off your seat and going and talking to a colleague. It might be something that you Google. Insights take lots of different forms, but doing that insights and doing the research will absolutely help you to get a better defined brief. Next slide. So I've added this one in here because it is different for every single organisation. What works for Fisher Funds may not work for AUT. What we tell you today in some of the examples we bring up on screen in our 2 working examples might not work, but the 4 points certainly that we have raised here will work. So I think the idea and the point we want to get across is be a champion for the brief within your organisation. I think that's really important. Stick to it, talk to your team and, make sure it's adhered to because it will absolutely help you long term. So we really wanted to get that point across that it is absolutely different for every organisation and move on because that slide is quite painful in the eye. Next slide. So I'm going to give you an example of a creative brief for our Fisher Funds marketing team, and Courtney will talk to you about more of a tactical brief. So if you move to the next slide. So at Fisher Funds, we spend a lot of time thinking about what problem is you're trying to solve, and is it a real problem? I know that sounds really simple and quite basic, but sometimes someone can come to you and say, well, they want to send an email for something. Does it have to be an email? Can it be something else? Do we have to send it? Can we use a notification in our app? So we spend a lot of time deciding on whether it's actually a problem we want to solve. The other thing which I harp on about is things like job numbers. We have a job number for every single thing that we do, and every piece of documentation that we set up for a campaign is labelled appropriately, which you see on the screen. So we would have a brief, we would have a document that has some copy in it that we can collaborate in. We have a checklist that gets filled out for every single campaign as well. And then we circle back and we have a launch pack, which we get out to the entire company. So we are a big believer in having everything labelled properly and set up properly. The kickoff meeting is something else we do. Sorry, just back to that previous slide. The kickoff meeting is also something else we do for more of our bigger creative campaigns. So we would get in a room if we can, but quite often it's a virtual meeting where we would have not only our marketing team, but other people across the organisation. So we would have someone maybe from the front line who heads up our client success team. We might have someone from our advice team. Occasionally we get legal involved. And I think it's really important in your kickoff to make sure you're all on the same page. And we use Miro quite a lot because we find that helps with brainstorming and note-taking. And then we often summarise that and put that into the brief. We're also using Workfront, so Adobe Workfront. So we're using it. It's a really, really good tool for marketing teams. I think we've still got some more work to do on it. It's incredibly powerful, and it is a type of tool that you can keep really good documentation in it as well. So we would be going through this tool weekly to make sure all of the campaigns are in there, and we also take meeting notes and put them in there as well. But I think we've still got more work to do on Workfront, but it is currently working for us. Then obviously we do the work, get in there, get stuck in, but we would always go back to our stakeholders if we need to, because sometimes once you start doing the work, the insights can also start to fall out as well. And then, as I said before, we are very big on doing a lot of PR every time we launch something. So we post in an all-company Slack channel. We would get people either feeding back on it, but hopefully it hasn't at that point. And it would have gone through a very strict sign-off process as well, because we're financial services. So we use a tool called PageProof to make sure it's circulated to all the relevant stakeholders and gets all the sign-off as well. So this process works for us. I feel like for our team, we're kind of always tweaking it. It's not necessarily black and white, but it is working well for us at the moment. Next slide. Courtney is going to talk about an example for AUT.
Cool. I'm going to talk about what I call BAU briefing. It's the unsexy work that we have to do. I like to think of it as the bulk of the everyday work you have to get done. It needs to get briefed in, and you want it to be like easy for the stakeholders to get to you, and you want the whole process to be simple. So I'm going to show you some examples. Next slide. So this is just a quick snapshot of our process of how something gets from conception to sign off. And what I've zoomed in at the bottom is literally the Marketo brief part of it, which is they have to create their brief, they've got to get their digital assets, and then they go through a sign off with our content team, and that gets all approved before my team actually picks up the brief and does it. So it's gone through a level of sign off to make sure that there's less errors and the stakeholder feels really confident that what they're giving us is good. Next slide, please. This is a example of our current state for briefing. We do all of ours in a Word doc. I can't show you the entire Word doc, but I have pulled out these two bits from it. So we designed the briefing document with our stakeholders to make sure that it worked as much for us as it did for them. And we predominantly fit most of our BAU work into templates, and those templates are driven by tokens. And so what you can see here in this table is an example from an event brief where we've asked for particular information, which all links into tokens. And the blue stuff is compulsory stuff they have to give us. Orange is optional. And if you see the example on the other side, the little brackets will show you where the blue information is used and where the orange information is used. Now, these are both shown in our brief so that when someone is filling out a brief, they're not just filling out this table going, I wonder what that will look like. They have an example sitting there so they know where things are going to go. Next slide, please. So this is our future state. We're not quite there yet, but we are working to move our briefing templates into web forms. Now, this is a process that's taking a bit of time, but because we've got such a strong, I suppose, Word doc brief, we're able to translate that into a web form quite easily. And you can see these examples here. I've used the similar template, similar table that you just saw, and you can see where each field relates: event name, event date, event time. But we can even put additional information for our stakeholders. So when they're logging on and filling in this brief in a web form, they can like hover over the little question mark, get some more information. We can put in some, default text so they know what goes where. We can also put limitations so they don't do long CTAs. So it's really kind of good for them and good for us. It reduces the number of errors. The AUT also takes this a step further, and with this example, we're using a system called Jetto, which also pushes all these tokens directly into Marketo. So it means that the stakeholder gets to chuck in all their stuff. They get to see a visual of what something might look like, and then they can push it on through. So we're able to turn them into a bit of a resource. Pretty much all of this to say that this pretty much saves our team time. And the best part of that is that if we save ourselves time, we can work on creative briefs like Chrissy's talking about, Anna's talking about, that are just so much more, not exciting, this doesn't feel right, but a lot more interesting, different, and it also gives us the space to evolve our BAU work as well as work on passion projects. So getting this stuff working saves us time everywhere.
Nice, and that was us. I think Amy had a question. Did I see Amy with her hand up?
No, I accidentally pressed the wrong button.
Okay, cool. Phil had a question. No, Phil said a comment. I think it's always really important to keep your stakeholders aware of staying focused on the business problem while briefing, not trying to brief the solution. Yes, completely agree with that, Phil. The system for testing and checking tokens, Jetto?
Well, Jetto just passes through the information from the brief to a token in Marketo. So we test everything in Marketo ourselves afterwards. So there's a still step after it's submitted, but yeah. But obviously I'm happy to talk more about it later on if people want to talk to me. Totally cool.
So we have around 5 minutes now for Q&A. If anyone have any questions in person or in the chat, go for it. No? Sydney has nothing. Melbourne? Oh, am I missing? No. Oh, yes. Well, I don't know what happens in the other cities, but we have mugs. Any questions you ask in, I don't know, Melbourne, Brisbane, New Zealand?
I think they've got some as well.
They got some as well? Okay. We got questions and we got mugs.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. We love the integrated web form for briefing as well. We've recently done something similar. In terms of the tokens pushing directly into Marketo, we have stakeholder groups which submit multiple briefs a week. How does it work with the tokens? Would it overwrite the information that's already come in, or does it create new tokens per brief?
So we set up templates, so it's I guess it's like it's one brief, and when they submit it once, it populates in Marketo once, and they're done. So they do all of the work in the platform, they do all the changes in the platform, and once they submit once, then it pushes through, and that's it. And then we take over from that point. So no one gets, so it doesn't, I guess, override or do anything like that. It's just a one stop.
Okay. And have you tested pushing them through to like program member tokens if it's a program per brief approach?
So I haven't done what do we do? We do like they're the program tokens. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, they're all going into program tokens that we've set up. We've set up predefined templates. Those are all linked together. So each token is linked to a field in the web form. And then when the submission happens, it duplicates the template that I've got it hooked up to in Marketo, duplicates it, and then fills all the tokens from what's come through. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Cool. No worries.
Congrats on your mum.
Yay, we got one more. Brisbane, Melbourne, New Zealand, do you guys have any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to have to say thank you so much, Courtney and Anna, to share their QA and sharing the Jetto systems. How exciting is that? I bet some of you are already thinking about using it now, and obviously using Workfront as well. So now we are moving to Jay and Cecilia. Are you guys ready? This is going to be about the tips of building programs and automations, and the two experts are going to share with you their tips and tricks. Leave it to you guys.
Hi, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Cecilia and I'm from VI.
And I'm Jay, I'm from MandLab.
So we actually have a dedicated slide to anchor what Courtney was saying. So because there's so many ways to achieve the same outcome within Marketo, so whatever other company works for them might not work for yours, or you need to tweak it a little to work on your Marketo instance. So things to consider like scalability, usability, like the complexity and tech debt, what are the reporting requirements, and other non-negotiables like legal, privacy, and security. So yeah, today what we're sharing are the tips and use cases that different ways you can use in Marketo. So hopefully you find it useful. So I'll pass to Jay to start off with the email programs.
Yeah, thanks. So we've tried to gather tips for each program types. So emails, nurtures, and events. Default programs are just too broad, so we haven't bothered going there. We tried going there, but then ran out of time. Yeah. So there's also a mix of, we've tried to put in like a mix of, depending on your level of proficiency with Marketo. So, there's a little bit of content for everyone, hopefully. So starting with email programs, our first tip is using batch programs to update statuses. If you are updating statuses, you might be familiar with having triggers for each of the different statuses. As you move to larger instances, that could be quite resource intensive. And so what you see on the right is an example of a batch program where the statuses are cascaded from different step numbers. Your most important step numbers are at the top, and they get action first, and then people finally only haven't done anything, then they get the last status down the bottom. And you can schedule that when you schedule email, so it's an extra step, but it's less resource intensive for Marketo. Next tip is nesting email programs. So you can nest email programs in default programs or event programs or nurtures, but no, actually you can't nest email blast programs in nurtures. I'll take that back. But you can see here from the screenshot, it's better organization if you have your email sends related to one messaging or one campaign nested in a default program. And then there's also the added benefit of having rolled up reporting. So if you want to know, everyone who's opened, or anyone who's opened at least one of those email sends, you can have a smart campaign to roll up that reporting to the default program. And then for event programs, I guess, the main benefit is just having the email blast programs within the event program. It's more intuitive than having a smart campaigns individually there. So it just helps marketers to, understand what they need to do when they're actioning an event program. And then last one is just about email programs. It's about implementing personalization in emails. So, you know, the most obvious is actually probably the most obvious is to use dynamic content. But then the other one for me was when I first started was to use a whole separate email. But that's not really scalable, and it can be tedious if you know you need to update if things aren't tokenized, or if things are tokenized, but then you have separate sets of tokens for each separate email. You know that can get very tedious to update. So the issue with dynamic content is that it's limited to one dimension, and by one dimension I mean segmentation. So, for example, if you have a beginner or advanced kind of personalization or segmentation. And then if you want to segment that in combination with like job roles, for example, a person who does stuff or a person who is more of a decision maker, you kind of have to create a combination of those segmentations. So you would need to actually create a new segmentation with 2 times 4, which is 8 segments, which, as you can imagine, becomes unscalable. So ultimately, the most robust way to personalize emails is actually using velocity scripting. And then our tip, or my tip for using velocity scripting, is to break up the scripts into input parts and output parts so that you avoid long and messy, difficult to maintain scripts, which, yeah, like as soon as you make it, so scripting is kind of like programming. If you make one small error in you know, capital case or lowercase, something can break. Just having all of that separated, you can quite easily troubleshoot. You just make sure that the script's more reusable and modular, and yeah, hopefully that's a tip that everyone can take on board. And moving on, we've got engagement programs with Cecilia.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Cool. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the engagement programs. So on the slide, you can see what a basic nurture build might look like. So usually we use email assets in streams, and also based on what you want to achieve. Every smart campaigns will be different, but then you usually will have add members to the nurture as a smart campaign, as well as change program status. Also stream transition if you're using multiple streams. And the reason using multiple streams, you might want to focus on different products, regions, time zone, or different life cycle stages. So here are some of the digital engagement program features. So engagement program can actually set and to send with local time delivery. You can also utilize the scheduling availability feature to automatically expire short-term content. We'll also suggest for when you're retiring content in the engagement program, don't remove the content from the stream, but instead archiving it so you'll be able to access the historical data and insights in the future. We'll also suggest adding exhausted leads to a static list so that it's easier to target in other email campaigns and nurture programs. And other than email assets, default programs can also be added to an engagement program stream. And why? Why would you use a nested program? Because nested program can provide additional flexibility for your email send. So, for example, if you want to exclude some group of people from that particular send, or just send it to a particular group of people, you can achieve that in nested program. Or replacing content. So, for example, if you want to change out an email because you have rebranded, or you have set up a new template, so you don't want the audience to receive the same content twice. So you have to, you can in the program you can change out the email directly from the send email flow step. That's quite easy and straightforward. And it also linked to the third point, which because nested program provide the functionality needed to exclude previous recipients, because the send is based on members of program, but not the specific asset itself. And nested programs can also enable more personalization by adding more other than flows, by adding other flow steps beyond just sending emails, which we'll cover this topic later. So how do we add a nested program to a stream? A nested program can be built within the engagement program or elsewhere. But there are two steps that are crucial, which is you need to create a smart campaign with the smart list filter member of engagement program, and then have a flow step including send email for it to work. Because how the smart campaign connects to a nurture stream is similar to how the requested campaign function works. So in the nurture stream, you can select the program or the default program and also the smart campaign that you have configured. If the smart campaign is successfully connected to the nurture stream, you'll be able to see the campaign with the little blue icon, which is shown in the screenshot as well. So yeah, we're going to share a few, like, how advanced nurture build would look like. Tailored content. So we have talked about how you can add other flow steps in the nested program earlier. So for example, if you have to build a nurture program and you want to have two streams, one have an intro content and one have an advanced content, and you also want to tailor the content to 3 different regions, let's say Australia, Singapore, and UK. That means that if you have to tailor the contents, you might need to set up 3 streams for these 3 regions, and then 2 each, 2 different streams each. So that means a total of 6 streams. But instead, we can handle the tailored content in different regions in the smart campaign and set up multiple send email flows. So you can see the example on the right-hand side. So you can choose to send Australian content out first, and then 2 hours later, send the Singaporean content, and then another 7 hours later to send out the UK content. So that way you have the control of when to send out the email, as well as tailor the content to send out to different regions. So that way you can only set up 2 streams. So yeah, that's less complicated. The next one, the random sample flow step. So you can use that to send out different emails to enhance personalization for testing and email performance. But also you can use that flow step to assign random people to lists. And also, you can even assign random people to different streams as well. So champion challenges. So we touched on, default programs can replace content earlier when, let's say, when you're rebranding. But what if you didn't set up the content in the default program when at the start, and you're just using email in the email assets in the streams? But there are also ways to overcome that. So for example, using champion challenges functionality, you can create a new test by right-clicking the email that you want to change out and add the challenger email, which is the new email, and choose the distribution percentage to 100% for the challenger email so that you can force the change to tell the program to send out the challenger email instead. So as we mentioned, there's a lot of ways to achieve the same outcome within Marketo. And also, of course, you can use champion challenger to A/B test the nurture program, which I believe is the most common use case within Marketo. So it was just like A/B testing an email campaign where you can test email subject lines, and you can test sender name and address or the length of the email content. So once you have set up a few nurture program, you might consider using nurture routers. So nurture routers, aka traffic cops, so they are operational campaigns to centrally manage nurture entry. So think of it like a sorting hat. So you can put people in one program and pulling them out, and then put them in a different nurture. So you can sort them into different places at different times in the journey and based on where they are currently in their buyer stage. But why are they needed? Because with multiple nurture programs that you set up, a lead might qualify for multiple programs, but which one do they go into? And building exclusive logic in multiple entry campaigns can be really difficult. So it will be easier to rely on cascading logic in a single smart campaign. But these will be custom built based on your business requirements, and you also need to decide on priority. So we've touched on some of the advanced build for nurture, but we've all seen some really crazy advanced build out there, but we're not really going into it today because it's really based on the business needs and use cases. But usually organization that would use those crazy custom builds would be because they want to focus on different products or multiple regions, languages, ICPs, and dimensions of personalization. And they will most likely to have emails built with velocity script for advanced personalization. They will also have a large library of reusable content managed through nested programs, and of course, multiple nurture programs. And then you need a nurture router that we've mentioned before to essentially manage nurture entries. And also you might want to build the nurture library programs, which are for, if you have a large number of nurture programs, you will want to essentially manage them there as well. I'll pass it back to Jade for event programs.
Cool, thanks. So the last one is, last tip we have is more of a technical one. I thought it would be good use case to go through some of the other features in Marketo. So event program templates, for me, events are typically cloned a lot, like from what I've seen. And to me, a good program template, a good event program template is a simple one. So I prefer to centralize as much as possible. We've all seen the webinar program template with everything, emails, landing page form, smart campaigns, a lot. But there's a lot that probably doesn't need to be in that program, especially if they're not edited, if they're just reused, if you've tokenized everything, which typically event programs are. And so you can move to like having a global operational program where all of the global assets live. And then in your events programs, you can have just the basic minimum. So the use case that I'm going to take you through is a static Marketo landing page for event programs. And common use cases might be you have weekly training webinars. You might want the benefit of a static registration page with a form for SEO or SEM purposes. And this combines, it's a good example because it uses Marketo out-of-the-box features and also Marketo developer features combined. So you do need a developer or understanding of JavaScript yourself.
It's a non-static registration page.
So starting with the program naming convention, this is where I'd start. You want to have the necessary bits of information within the program name. So the examples I put in there are UTC timestamp, title or name of the events, and then the region. And so you have a naming convention, which looks like 3 examples on the right. And then you take those bits of data and you put them into a single JavaScript-friendly text token that gets used in the landing page. So I formatted that so it looks better, but in your token, it'll be a long string. And then in your form, in your registration form, so this is a trick. You create a fake select field using a rich text section. You write the label and the select field using HTML. And then you will need a dedicated custom field to say the selected event that the person ultimately chooses. And you can add this to the form while you build it, or you can add it on the fly in JavaScript later. So on the landing page, you want to have at minimum the form, the JavaScript-friendly events list token that you've created, declared in the script tag, and then also the custom-written Marketo's forms JavaScript and script tag. And then in that Marketo's forms JavaScript, you want to have these steps at a minimum. So you want to create the option tags with the matching program names as values for each event. You want to inject those option tags into the fake select field, add the hidden dedicated custom fields to the form if you've chosen to do that, and then update the hidden field values with the value of the fake select field whenever it changes. And from there, it's really up to you how far you want to improve user experience for the end user. You can choose to display the start times in the user's locale using UTC timestamps, because using JavaScript to read from the person's location, you've got a UTC timestamp, you can display basically what their time is from the computer's time. You can filter the events list so that past events are excluded. You can enable known visit settings in the form that they just get hello, welcome back, pick events you'd like to register for, and the fake select field still works. You can automate the whole process of cloning and updating tokens for internal users with the help of Marketo's REST API, which Anna and which Anna and Courtney touched on before. So yeah, and the best part of this is that every event program can run on just a couple of smart campaigns, because not sure how many people know this, but program names of programs are special when they're exactly matching and case sensitive. So program related filters and triggers automatically update to the new program's name when they're cloned, but so do string type inputs, including data value changes. So the only caution here is that when you change, or the difference and the caution, that when you change the program's name in a program related filter or trigger, it updates automatically. No, when you change a program's name and it's being referenced in a program related filter or trigger, it updates automatically. But for these string type inputs, they don't update automatically. And for completeness, I know people will probably be thinking about data value changes doesn't trigger when a new record is created with a value already. When they fill out a form, if they're a net new record, that's not going to trigger. But there's always workarounds in Marketo, and I've worked around this by saving values to a proxy field first for net new records, and then a global smart campaign updates the dedicated field so that it's always the only trigger. Cool. And we're just a little bit over, so I don't think we have time for Q&A, but if anyone wants to leave questions in the chat, I'll be happy to answer them there.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, guys. We do actually have 5 minutes available for Q&A, so that's amazing. The time just somehow available. Any questions? There's some fancy scripting, email scripting stuff happening over there.
Sorry, I'll just turn on the volume.
Can you hear me? Yes. Sorry, it's Kate here in Melbourne. I'm sitting next to Cecilia. I'm interested in the nurture program router idea because a couple of people may have heard me talk about it, but we've got quite a lot of automated nurture programs running, and I'm just interested in any experience you might have on how they were set up, how you might set one of those up. So I'm assuming my brain's kind of going, we would copy the rules that we've got running for entering and exit in each specific one, and then just push them into program lists. Is that how that would work? We would change their program status or something? Or can you be more general than that?
There's different ways to build it, but the one thing to be careful about is using smart lists, like referencing smart lists at each level, because if you nest smart lists, it's going to chew up a lot of resources.
Yeah, right.
And so there's different ways to do it, which is using static lists is one way.
Yeah.
And then another way might be to actually concatenating a delimited string, which then get processed by the central processor. So that's the technical side of it. But yes, the main way that it works is generally all the same. So you've got a cascading logic, which nurtures are most important. And one of the other ideas I've seen is coming up with a nurture priority number for each of your nurtures.
Nice.
and then that cascades down. And then, yeah. But then there's the priority side, prioritization side, and then there's the technical side. How do you implement it so that it's most efficient on your systems?
Yeah, and also based on what sort of nurture programs you have, because you have multiple of them. So if you only have if you're only adding members to that nurture, in different nurture programs. So if you have each entry point of each program. So sorry, I'm just thinking how should I put this? Is it just easier to manage all the entry point in one single smart campaign? So that's not conflicting each other.
Well, that's what I really liked about it, because we continue as we add others to kind of go back and make sure that they're all talking to each other.
Yes,
Whereas
not conflicting, right?
I just feel this would, because obviously you don't want people participating in multiple campaigns.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah, no, I like it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that questions. Anyone else from Brisbane or New Zealand have any questions? No? Again, if you guys have any questions, virtually, feel free to just put it in the chat. One of us will get back to you with that. Now, I guess it's time to move and to move to the break. Well, we're gonna go for a little break now. It's a 10-minute break, so everyone can just I need to change the slide because 10 minutes from now it's 3:40. So we'll be back at 3:40. So everyone's at home. You guys can go, get your water. Everyone, and wherever you are, whether you're in Brisbane, whether you're in Melbourne, New Zealand, or Sydney, pretty sure your venue, if you're in person, you got your drinks. So feel free and, chat. See you guys soon.
Yeah, no.
Couple of the stuff we already did.
Hi, everybody. We're going to start. So sorry, we're like 5 minutes late now. Melbourne, Brisbane. Are you guys ready? Yep. All right, cool. So welcome back, everybody. Hopefully everyone has done their important business. Get some drinks, something to bite. Let's go and move forward to the next one. We're going to hand it over to Jasmine and Brittany. They're going to share they take on QA and testing, which is really important because we want to make sure that we minimize any risks when we're setting our program live. Jasmine, Brittany, hand it over back to you.
Thanks, Steph. Hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine, and I'm from Grant Thornton, Australia. I'm the Senior Digital Marketing Manager here. Brittany, introduce herself.
And I'm Brittany. Hi, everyone. I'm the MarTech lead at EY. Great to be with you today to talk about QA. Jazz, kick us off.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So let's get these slides working. Okay, cool. So today we're here to chat about quality assurance or QA. So what is it? to put it simply, it's a process that makes sure our marketing efforts are executed flawlessly. So what this means is double checking all the automation processes from the email campaigns to customer journeys are running smoothly. I'm going to break this down a little bit. So it involves verifying the data and making sure it's accurate. And is it up to date as well? We need to confirm that our contact lists are accurate, that segmentation rules are correctly applied, and that any dynamic content is pulling in the right information. Data accuracy is critical because even the smallest error can lead to sending the wrong message to the wrong audience. Checking triggers. So in automation, we have to make sure that our campaigns are set up correctly. So sending a follow-up email, for example, when a user is signed up for a webinar, we need to make sure that the triggers are working as they're intended. So having a misconfigured trigger could also mean missing out on that timely comms, or even worse, spamming our users with irrelevant messages. Communication delivery. So this is another essential part, and what we're talking about is making sure all of the emails are not only delivered, but even the landing pages are actually correct across all of our different devices. So making sure that those messages are looking good everywhere. So finally, I guess the key components we're talking about is testing, reviewing, and continuous optimization. So with testing, we don't want to assume that things are just going to work. We need to test them. And with reviewing, we want to have multiple sets of eyes to catch those mistakes that one person might miss. But in saying that, Britt will touch on this later because it will be dependent on your business rules around how many stages of reviews you want to have. Continuous optimization, so always looking for ways to improve our processes and results. We want to analyze what worked and what didn't and make adjustments. Cool. So why we have QA, why is it a big deal? First of all, it helps us avoid those mistakes, minimize them. The elements that can mess up our campaigns and even harm our brand's reputation. So think about the disaster, I guess, of sending an email to the wrong people because you didn't configure that smart list correctly. Not only does it look unprofessional, but it can also lead to lost trust and even compliance issues. QA also allows us to create efficient workflows within Marketo. So when having a clear QA process that Britt's going to go through later, our team knows exactly what steps to follow to ensure everything is working correctly. This streamlines our operations and makes our processes more reliable. Boosting stakeholder confidence. So another significant benefit when stakeholders, whether that be your internal teams or external clients, making sure that we have a QA process in place that is reliable, we're gaining that trust from them. So they know that they can count on this process to work as planned. Oops, sorry. What happened? Yeah, sorry about that, guys. So what was I saying? Yeah, so we're just making sure that we're getting that trust from the business as well, so they can invest in our strategies and support our initiatives at the end of the day. So just to sum up, in terms of goals for QA, we want to ensure accuracy, maintain that consistency, and drive continuous improvement. I'm going to hand over to Britt now, who's going to take us through considerations and other important factors.
Alrighty. Thanks, Jazz. All right, so let's talk through the considerations when developing a QA process for our marketing automation teams. Sorry, guys, we're just getting some feedback. Cool. Okay, so there are many variables to consider, as we know, and as the slides don't know. There we go. And this list here is not exhausted, but it's a great place to start. So firstly, determining who should be involved, a very important one. Do you have someone that can talk to each part of the workflow? Having those different perspectives is really going to ensure that the process reflects the needs of everybody involved, as well as the broader business objectives. We must assess the volume of programs requiring QA. Whether we're dealing with a handful of campaigns or hundreds, our QA must be robust enough to maintain quality without becoming a bottleneck. Rules. What rules are going to dictate parameters of your QA process? Do you have compliance processes, industry regulations? Do all programs need to go through a second pair of eyes, a third, a fourth? You name it, which also leads into user permissions and configurations. Do you have users that have different levels of permission? Just consider how this is going to affect your workflows, and then program handovers if they're required. I think we'd all love to have a dedicated QA team if this was an option, but it is a big piece of the puzzle. Many of us, I'm sure, wear many hats, so it might be that the whole automation team is trained up for QA to ensure that you have enough resources in comparison to the volume. But here, by clearly identifying a person's role in the QA process, it's just going to give it a lot of structure. Standardization, this can greatly enhance the efficiency of our processes by implementing that clear process and a checklist that I'll talk to next. We can streamline these tasks, we can reduce errors, and we can ensure a consistent level of quality across all of our campaigns. The next one's very important as well. So the ability to scale QA up or down, this should be built into your process. It is about finding the right balance, which you'll hear me say a few times throughout this today, but being able to adapt to increased demands or increased risk without sacrificing quality or overwhelming the team is very important. If you're lucky, you face the choice between automated and manual QA. We've heard a few tools today, Jetto, Workfront. So it's just worth considering what tech you have available to automate approval workflows or create that online checklist or form for the team to submit. Keep that audit trail, paper trail. But again, it's about finding the right balance or mix between automated and manual. And program templates as well. So we've just heard some efficiencies there, but the impact of templates on QA efficiency cannot be overstated here. Dynamic templates are going to simplify the process and provide a very reliable starting point that requires fewer checks and fewer adjustments. This can obviously turn into a bit of a project, but it's absolutely worth it. And accountability. If you have clear roles and responsibility, it's going to ensure that everybody knows what is expected of them and that there's ownership of the QA outcomes. And this is something that I'll talk through in a case study. Okay, checklist. Who doesn't love a checklist? So this needs to suit your needs and your business and your team and your workflows. You can go either end of the scale, start big, wind it back, build on the basics. It's really about figuring out what's going to help you sleep at night. My checklist helps me sleep at night. There are many checklist resources available online and I'm sure across the user groups. So if you need some inspo or somewhere to start, just reach out. The riskiest elements should be at the top of the list. Links, I'll just put that one out there. And then filter through top to bottom of your program setup. Think about those non-negotiables and the nice to haves as well. But also consider what additional checks you might need for different channel types, different campaign types as well. But at the end of the day, you just need to include the checks that are going to instill confidence in your workflows and ensure quality of communications. Okay. Testing, training, adoption. Things go wrong or right, and that's why we test. After working through your considerations, building your process, the checklist to suit your needs, the fun begins. In our world, it's not eat, sleep, rave, repeat. It's test, optimize, refine, repeat. And this is when we're going to find those bottlenecks. We'll find what works well, and we can scale up or scale down to suit our objectives. It's also very important to document your processes and ensure that the right training is in place. This is super helpful when you're onboarding new people into the team. Okay, so I thought I'd share an example today. I recently joined the digital team at EY, and as a priority, we needed to optimize our QA process, a process for a team of 5 automation specialists and up to 4 programs going through QA daily, just to set some context there. The process we had in place needed some refinements. We needed to find those efficiencies, but we also needed to increase the accountability of our users. So let's jump into it. All right. This is what we had in place. I have definitely simplified it, but each color here represents a different person. From start to finish, a program would go through 3 members of the automation team. So the first person building it, they're looking after the request start to finish. Once it's built, moving through to an initial QA person, and then back to the builder for iterations, moving to the final QA person who was then responsible for making the final touches, scheduling, and then liaising back with the builder to confirm with the stakeholder, and so on and so forth. So I think you might get where I'm going with this. There's a lot of hands, a lot of eyes, a lot of accountability shifting. And over time, this process has just become so complex. And it's obviously because things go wrong, and being quite a large firm, things go wrong across different firms all around the world, and the process gets, I guess, tightened up a little bit, more complex. I think the checklist, by the end of it, was maybe 8 tabs and had 1 million things to tick off. But the big thing here was the responsibility lines had blurred. The accountability was across 3 people, and it was just leading to more mistakes rather than less. Would you believe it? And here's how we optimized it. We stripped it right back. We put 100% of accountability on the assigned team member. They build the program, they do self-QA, they submit that checklist, and then it goes to a secondary person for final QA. And this person's role is purely to review. There's no one else jumping into that program to make changes. We've had this process in place now for 12 weeks. With a monthly drop-in to review those bottlenecks and suggestions for improvements. We've got Workfront as well, so we've just built in an approval workflow, and we really have found those efficiencies and exceeding our SLAs, which is a great KPI for us, and minimal to no errors as well. And the team are definitely enjoying the clarity of the QA process. So if anything, having a QA process implemented removes risk. It instills confidence in the team and in the business. You have to find the right balance. And of course, test, optimize, refine, repeat, like any good marketing automation story. And you know that quote about dancing like no one is watching? It's that, but QA. Thank you. Thanks. Any questions? I haven't checked the chat. Steph, has anything come through?
Nothing come through so far in our chat.
Is anybody out
That
there?
was really good, Brittany and Jasmine. Any questions here? We see any questions? We got Andrew here from Sydney. Go, Andrew.
Yeah, so we're actually looking at a solution for QA. Well, thanks for that, by the way. That was awesome. And we're currently looking at a way to kind of like, I guess, automate the checklist process, because it is quite cumbersome to open, you know, a spreadsheet every time and attach a spreadsheet every time. So when you're using Adobe Workspace or any kind of solution, do you have a solution that helps with that automation process of the checklist?
God, no, but I would love one. I have looked at building, can you build me one? Looking at a custom form, which we can build into a specific task in Workfront. So there is a solution that Workfront can provide, and you can create, custom forms to obviously fill out. That's probably the next stage for us to implement. We currently use a spreadsheet that gets uploaded and then downloaded, but the same spreadsheet obviously gets followed along as the audit trail. So,
Go. Thank you.
does anybody else have an online checklist? Anybody want to share?
Please.
Online checklists, people. Anyone from New Zealand, from Melbourne, from Brisbane? You want to share anything?
My Excel spreadsheet as well, if anybody wants to have a look at that. We love spreadsheets.
We love our checklist, don't we? a bit crazy with the checklist, to be honest. All right, cool. I don't think there's anything else. Let me just take a look at. Oh, we do have questions in the chat. Sam has a question. You mentioned some automated tools to help QA. Which tools have you found to be the best out there in support for QA?
Great question. I haven't exhausted the list by any means. I've used Asana and now Workfront. Both provide online options to create custom forms in there. The approval workflow function in Workfront's really cool. So we changed the status to QA final and it triggers an alert to our QA final team and someone jumps on it. So we manage requests through statuses. That's how we keep the workflow going. But in terms of the checklist, that is a spreadsheet.
That's it, just a spreadsheet. It's a very important spreadsheet, by the way. I know I'm laughing here, but it's a very important spreadsheet.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I think nothing else? Oh, I'm sorry, Andrew. I will give you a mug.
Thank you.
Have you guys given any mugs yet? No? Gosh. Okay, cool. So we're gonna start sharing our screen now. Thank you so much, Brittany and Jasmine, giving you all the thoughts how important checklists are now. We are having Holly today. I don't know how come there's a...
You're welcome. She's going to be this for the next hour and a half.
So soothing, Holly.
Our last topic is going to be on reporting, and Holly is going to go through the key data and describing all the foundation of reporting. Here you go. Can I just click off?
Hi guys, how are you all doing today? I hope you're having a fantastic early or late afternoon, depending what country you're in. Unfortunately, Veronica couldn't make it today, but we are just going to go through some reporting together. The main goal of this will be about primarily the different pieces that you need to get in place in order to get the kind of reporting you want. Just like every other piece of marketing campaigns, QA, briefing, also incredibly important, you need to make sure that you have an idea from the outset and functionally go through, and you also need to make sure that you are continuously working through all your pieces as well when you do your reporting. You actually do want to see the results of what your marketing initiatives are. Is a small and minor detail. You do want to make sure that you can prove that what you're doing day in, day out is useful and effective to people, and also how useful and effective it is. It's also very useful to know just really small minor details. Where should I put my budget in? You know, what should I be investing in? What actually gets results? So there are levels of granularity in reporting, as I'm sure a lot of you know, program level. So just literally, I've created a brilliant nurture now using the great tips from today. How effective has that been so far? Being able to roll up, as they've suggested, into other programs as well. Group automatic reporting, which is that same reporting you just get out of a program. Just sitting in the analytics section, that can still be very useful to see how everything's stacking up over time at a clear glance. Lifecycle reporting, this is tying everything back to where people are at in their customer journey. MPI, RCE, and RCA, that's the more advanced reporting that feeds off once you've got enough data for your lifecycle. And then multi-system reporting, which is where everyone really does want to get to as a business, it seems a lot of the time when you talk to people, I'm sure you've spoken to stakeholders, I'm sure you've spoken to other people, I'm sure you've sat in on a sales webinar, and it's like, look at this beautiful dashboard with all the data in the world that can pretty much direct everything for us and tell us the future. And I'm sure it's just really easy and pressing 3 buttons and we'll magically get there. No. Every single thing that we've talked about today, from a clear brief to creating a program that is clear and concise and can run and is scalable, to QAing that and making sure that you have your information correct and that it's hitting the right areas and hitting the right segments, all tie in to getting to this end spot. Every single thing that you create in Marketo, every single thing that you set up for your marketing initiatives needs to be set up correctly in order to see that, get to that end data at the end. In order to be able to see what programs are effective on a person's customer journey to get on a multiple touch or a first touch or however, you need to just get the basics right in terms of getting the program data in and using your statuses. So it all works together pretty much like an onion. How smart I would have done some Shrek themed stuff. Levels of granularity. So you need to plan and set up ahead of time. You also need to consider this all the way at the start with your briefing, with that brilliant briefing breakdown that we got earlier today. And also when you do your setup as well and how you set up your programs, making sure, like everyone talked about, being able to effectively roll up and being able to make sure your programs are managed beautifully. And also when you QA, you need to make sure your program statuses are right, that they're running at the correct times, whether they're batch or QA, that everything is matching up together. After you do that, reporting also follows a similar journey. You have your goals, your information versus metrics, your ROI, if that is something that you're tracking. More companies than you think generally aren't. And then also tying into the QA, build, optimize, and test, review, measure, and revise. So the step 1 is goals. Pretty much like briefing, when people come up and go, we want to send an email on Tuesday to everyone about this, you really want to take a step back and go, what is the actual goal that we're trying to accomplish? There's definitely always been a case with somebody here where you have been asked by somebody to send an email or create a program or do an event, and it's really unclear what the purpose of that is. It's a similar thing with reporting. A lot of people ask for like, how many people signed up or how many people jumped on this landing page, and beyond just, I want to go and know how many people have looked at this thing that I care about, there isn't a clear back-end goal of what that point is. And the wider you look from beyond just one campaign or one marketing initiative to everything you've done that quarter, to everything you've done that year, the more important it is to have really clear idea on the goals of the reporting that you're building out and who specifically needs what. Your CEO does not most of the time care about how many emails were, how many people opened the email for the 24-hour event that you did 6 months ago. Equally though, there's probably a lot of people who are QAing and A/B testing what the content is of all those emails who do care because they want to see what the results of that are. So you need to also consider who needs your data, the understanding of people beyond yourself, what are they actually looking for, and also frequency and what kind of overall view you need. For a lot of reporting in Marketo, you often have to make a decision ahead of time once you get beyond the initial program of, do you want first touch or do you want multi-touch? I generally prefer multi-touch because I want to see where everything is at the start, but there's pros and cons to both depending on what your marketing is. So one thing that I like to use when I'm working in a new business or when I'm looking back at our reporting and I want to be able to generate better results, or I know I need to build out stuff, that's the process I'm in right now with my company, is doing user stories. These are kind of things sometimes people bring up in briefs, sometimes they, for other things, or when they're setting up things in terms of like a big project, like as this person, I want to do this. So for reporting, it's generally a lot simpler, but it's basically the basic breakdown is, as somebody in this position, I need to be able to report on something and the description as to for what, and in order to accomplish X. So as a stakeholder, I need to be able to report on how much money we're spending on each channel in order to know where to invest the budget. For example, it's good generally to do it for everyone who asks for reporting for you if you're doing a big step back and looking at this from the first get-go at the head of time. Or if you don't have the resources for that, because maybe you're just one person and 12 hats in front of you, at least being able to go through yourself or doing a stripped down version of this. But just like you would brief with a campaign, you want to brief in with your reporting because it takes time to generate the information you need for that. Speaking of information versus metrics, garbage in, garbage out. You want to make sure that if you are building reporting, that you have the information you need in order to get the metrics you want to measure, basically. Certain reports in Marketo are just not going to work and not get you the results you need. The fancy reports that a lot of people get really excited about when they go, yes, I'll sign up and purchase this product. If you don't have the information, if you don't have everything set up in the back end, they're just not going to work. So for example, multi-touch, first touch across the life cycle or speed of transition across one customer journey to the other, you need to set up a revenue cycle model because otherwise Marketo is not necessarily going to know when a person is here versus there. If you don't tell it or you don't tell it how to work that out, it's not going to know and it's going to have garbage. Other example, person data needs to be clean and consistent. Source and source detail for reporting tends to be the messiest. Really big example, I'm just going to bully myself a little here and talk about my company. We have optimistically 60% of what we need. And I would argue out of what we need, it's not consistent enough. And it's not just consistency in terms of whether the person has it or not, it's consistency in naming, right? So if you want to say website and then the specific page, that's great. But you need to always have it that way. Similar thing with events. There's so many times where I've walked in and it turns out this person came from, Computers R Us, shareholder massive Toyota phone event 2014. And then everyone else just has event or webinar. I was like, well, okay, then you've missed a whole group of people. Similar thing with source detail. Some people never use source detail. Sometimes it's not the granularity. You just want to be able to know these types of webinars, these types of events, these types of forms, these certain things on the website or just social. But you need to make a decision and you need to keep that consistency going and you need to make sure that data is consistent. Opportunities. So there's a lot of reporting out of the box in Marketo, particularly in the more complex areas like RCA/RCE and Marketo Performance Insights, which is a really good way of very quickly creating the reports that a lot of people build for RCA and RCE. And they'll throw a hissy fit because they'll go, you don't have opportunities. This is, you've noticed, I've got a big asterisk on there because not every single company utilizes opportunities and not every single company utilizes the opportunity object cleanly syncing to Marketo because it's really thinking about Dynamics and Salesforce in that area. The other reason for that asterisk is there is a Jimmy hack around that. I know that you can, in an integration, somehow feed into it, but unfortunately, I didn't spend 6 weeks remembering and then revising the strategy for this, so I can't go into that detail, but it is doable. But if you do use that opportunity and you do want to use the reports for that in Marketo, the really big key thing is they need to be updated and they need to be consistently dated. Marketo doesn't magically pull things back. It's very hard to actually, if at all, get that data to be the correct date in the old opportunity. It'll just keep going from that opportunity is. And we all know there's a salesperson who has a spreadsheet and they are putting all their information in there. And as much as possible, you want that opportunity information to not be in the spreadsheet. You want it to be in the system where you can actually report on it. And you want to, as much as possible, have it in the system when they actually got that deal. Otherwise, how do you know? It's secret money, secret people. A big area, by the way, to make it really easy to get salespeople to put stuff in consistently is drop downs and making it as simple as possible for them to fill stuff out. If they don't have to type, they're not going to misspell any Australia. And if they can just do drop downs, it's a lot quicker. It's like with forms on your website, right? There's a 20% drop off each time someone has to do something complicated. Program performance needs to be accurate and consider your acquisition source. Program performance is those statuses that hit through as you go through your program. You just right at the briefing stage when you were talking about the goals for your campaign, you want to then go when you go in the build to ensure that those are accurately being tracked, that goal, and how people measure success in the program itself, and QA that as you go through. Acquisition source as well. Some companies don't use it because that gets picked up in a different system and that's where they care about. But if you want to measure where your records are coming from, where your people are coming from, how you're generating new leads, you need to ensure a level of accuracy if you want to use any reporting in Marketo. Yeah, going back to what I was talking about with opportunities, it needs to be correct data. If you're getting CRM data to feed at the end point to be able to go, okay, well, we've done all this marketing and this is feeding back to this many people, it needs to be correct and it needs to be in the right places for Marketo to read it. If you have a tool like, for example, Salesforce or Dynamics, you'll probably know there's only so many objects or so many places where you can write down data that Marketo can even see it and go, yes, this is what it does. If you have to put it in a different place because of the way that your company is structured and the information is structured, consider having fields that pull from those areas and put them into the places Marketo can see, or accept that Marketo is just not going to do that reporting and make it clear for everyone. ROI Marketo, you need to have relevant period costs for each marketing initiative in each program. Again, it goes back to every time that you build out a marketing initiative, that briefing, that QA, that building out, that planning, it all matters because you get that accurate, you put your ROI in, and you can see what's effective. Certain reports won't work if you don't have data. As I was showing, you need RCM to build it out. So this is the kind of cool reporting that you could be doing if the data was in there. It takes a while to get there if you haven't been doing it, but it's worth it. Similar thing here. This is Marketo Performance Insights. This I find when you actually get this running can be very useful, not for necessarily like the mid-year pieces, but for being able to just say really cleanly, this is what's effective right now. When your CEO suddenly walks in and go, hey, what's useful? Here, it's this. MPI is about 16 reports that can be genuinely really useful if all that data is sitting in Marketo that you need it. Next thing is ROI, because we spoke about that, tying it together. It's thrown around a lot. It's about just getting an idea about what channels are earning their keep and what channels are a waste of time. If you have a partnership with a company and you're trying to generate leads and pushing to you, you want to be able to track that and see if that's effective. You're spending money on ads and those people are getting onto the web page, but they're not signing up for anything. What's the point? You want to be able to be consistent in what is a cost and what is actually measuring each program. I've done and spoken about ROI with a number of people. Some companies, by the way, don't do this. Some companies go, we're going to measure costs in other areas or in another way or in another tool. That's fine. But the key thing there is consistency. If you're measuring how much you spent on a graphic designer in thing A, you have to have a very good reason why you're not caring about the graphic designer for invite B. User stories for reporting, you want a clear break in your budget and what you want to count as a cost. A lot of companies have gone to me and said, does me working on it as a person, as a marketing team, count as a cost? And I think the step back from that is, do you have to care about that in your budget? Because sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. Generally speaking, if it's people in the company working with man hours, I don't generally count it as a cost simply because that person has to exist regardless. And it's just not something you necessarily need to report on. But things like if it's all external agency, that might be a different story. Setting period costs. So I'm just going to go through really quickly how to do this. How many people have set up period costs here? Got a couple hands, a couple people. I know anyone over here? Magic. Okay. So it's pretty straightforward. Again, like I said, sometimes people don't use this, but if you want to be able to see how much you spent on something, what you do is you go to the setup tab, you pull your period cost across, and the key thing I really want to get down, and you can tell I know it's from Marketo because it's beautiful in 2015 and blue and orange, is what month that cost was and how much it was, and a note. The note, if you store that elsewhere, doesn't have to be there. It's like the least useful part because it's not what you're going to use in your report, but it is very useful if you are going to do it to have it really consistent. And like, I know why I spent $250 USD on this, because somebody will ask you in 6 months, 8 months, the moment that you mention ROI, somebody will ask you. So this is sort of a thing to keep in mind, and why period cost setting is also really important to keep consistent once you've decided to keep doing it. In this example here, we've put costs in for March. We didn't put costs in for Jan, Feb, April, or May. So when we do our reporting, it's going to say March, it cost $6,000. And then it was free before and after, forevermore. That's probably not true for things like an ongoing campaign where you're spending money on AdWords to push to a landing page. It's probably not true necessarily if you spent 6K on like getting an external to update your emails, and then in like May, you spent 6K to get those emails updated again because you've gone a whole new direction, a whole new branding. That's probably not true either. The other thing as well is that you've got here Jan and April, 3K, 3K. It's going to assume that March and Feb and Jan, they were all 3K. And then you put something in for April, so all the months after that now count as 3K. So that's why consistency is important there, and that's why you got to keep it in mind. Any questions so far? Oh, cool. This is both like, yes?
So you can go back and adjust them and
that is true. It's one of the few areas where like
done that before.
Courtney's brought up a good point. I don't know if anyone can hear it. This is one of the ROI, like the period costs, like one of the few areas where actually you can go back and play with the dates again. You can do that. It's editable. The world's not going to fall apart. So if you do get hit by a bus, you can prioritize that being the bigger and more important thing in your life.
You put actual costs in.
Yeah.
I think even if you don't have the cost, you can put 0.
Yes.
To show in your reporting.
That is true as well. Pierre's brought up a good point. 0 counts as a cost. It just needs something there. And that is how sometimes people pull up the reports in Marketo Performance Insights, and how people bring up in RCA and RCE as well. And we've got our zeros. It didn't cost us anything, but we did consider the cost.
You got 1 minute to go.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, we're right at the end, so that's perfect. Review, measure, revise. You've got your goals in place. You've agreed to a timeline to set up and review the metrics and goals now that you've got your reporting out of the way. And you want to make sure it's still aligned with the company's future business processes. There's been so many times where I've walked in and go, oh, the reporting's not accurate or the reporting doesn't work. And just like with programs, when they say it doesn't work, what's happened is that the business doesn't care about this metric anymore. Like they don't care about email opens anymore because they've actually woken up and like gone, oh no, people don't spend thousands of dollars because they opened an email. Like we care over time. Or they've gone, we actually don't sell that product anymore, or we don't consider these audience segments anymore in our reporting. And just like with a program, you need to review it and make sure it makes sense. You need to review it and make sure you revise. So you need to check the tool that you're using to check the results of your programs, basically. You need to make sure day to day. I tend to check every quarter at the minimum, and then a little bit more if it's stuff like ongoing programs, for example. And yeah, that is pretty much it. We've hit 1 minute to go. Does anyone have any questions? No? Anything in the chat?
Nothing in the chat.
Magic. Well, thank you very much. Oh, yeah, fantastic.
Fun. Thank you. That was great. This is, I guess, loosely about reporting, but we're finding a lot of like bot clicks or like are showing up. So like within half an hour of sending like a batch campaign, we get a huge influx of clicks on like things that we know people aren't clicking on, like privacy policy and those sorts of things.
Yeah, no one's clicking the unsubscribe and all your socials and the terms and conditions.
Exactly. So just any tips around filtering that out of reporting, or is there any sort of way? I know you can go like bot clicks false, but not in
so you can do the bot clicks false on like the admin level and do some setup there, but there are some limitations with the reporting itself. Generally speaking, first of all, with that kind of reporting, I tend to wait 48 hours. Okay. And then what I will often do as well is I might set up a filter if it's just the program level email, email performance report, I might set a filter being like, if you click all of this in like this short period of time. Yeah, there's a limit to sometimes how much you can do it. And sometimes I also check for repeat offenders and exclude them as well. So sometimes there can be limitations, but there are options.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Cool. Anyone else? Awesome. Well, thank you.
There's a question online.
Rad.
Sorry.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Can you speak to advanced journey analytics and any best practice tips you have followed based on mapping out the process and configuration required for setup?
Okay, so that is a pretty wide topic. My base thing is, first of all, get your goals and figure out what exactly you're measuring on. My next step is making sure that you have an RCM in place that is really clear and consistent on what you're goals are. So just baseline getting that information in there. What I often like to do is often have fields to check when people last entered and when they move to the next, basically. The reason for that is if somebody has the 15th of November from when they were known to when they are won, it's a fair chance they've jumped a couple of levels. The key thing there, honestly, is just consistency. Making sure the thing with reporting is it's all kind of the same thing. It's the consistency that matters in terms of best practice. You want to make sure that the RCM's built. You want to make sure that your statuses in the program that you're probably using to manage the RCM. I wish I could deep dive into us revenue cycle model now, but I think we've done that in the past. You want to make sure that all of those match up with what's on the model. When you go into configuring the reporting itself, the number one thing actually for best practices is make it really clear and have a clear idea ahead of time if you care about first touch or multi-touch reporting. Because first touch is about this is where people came from and then attributing everything back onto there. And multi-touch is that area of, you know, this person joined in April, they opened a bunch of emails, they stopped for a bit in May, and in June and July is when they actually started looking at filling out our forms to contact sales. The configuration is in Marketo because of the level of reporting it is, and it's all set around the marketing Marketo can see. It all just comes down to consistency in your data, consistency in what fields you're using, and consistency in making sure that the consistency is accurate. If you want to change how your sources are in Salesforce, make sure that you update the ones in Marketo are updated as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We have another question. Paul has a question.
The camera's on there. Just realised it's just there. Move over. For the podium.
Beautiful. Yep.
Apparently, we've been seeing blank here online.
Apologies.
So, any gotchas with retention policies? Our favorite retention policies for reporting.
So, short answer is yes. The long answer is it depends on what reporting you're doing, which sounds like very weaselly, but true. If you're only able to hold certain data for 90 days, you need to be very clear that that reporting is only 90 days back, basically. It also depends on the kind of data that you are holding, for example. So Marketo only holds a certain amount of data for a certain period of time before it becomes harder to report on. They've got a breakdown in Marketo Nation. So if you ever log into Marketo and you can go to help, you can find it. Some of it's 90 days, some of it's 60 days, some of it's way longer. Yeah. So if, for example, email clicks, email opens, that can only go back so many days. So that reporting is going to be rolling on that. When that happens, there's two key things to keep in mind. One is don't use anyone's personal data if you're going to show that reporting out there in that reporting. If you don't have compliance or you don't have a secure place to put it. The other thing is with that retention, if you know that you can only go back 90 days, well, you got to make sure that that reporting is being sent to the right people in that time.
That's good. Cool. Thanks, Holly. All right, cool. So we got understanding of the retention policy, period cost, making sure you set it up as 0 if you don't know it yet, making sure that, you know, you're consistent on all of those. We are pretty much at time, guys. We've pretty much gone through all the content we have for today, and we will go through and, you know, share the recording to you all, people at home, people here in person at the venue, and also feel free to contact any of us. We'll be happy to, you know, to answer your questions if you have any questions, or if you want to speak, or if you have a topic, or you want to sponsor, just any of those, reach out to any of us. We'll be there. It's been a pleasure with you guys here. And discovering a new way of working in Marketo. Have a good evening and, you know, see you next time. Bye.